outside, so hopefully. Welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's good to see everybody here. Hopefully we'll keep it short. It's nice to stay outside. Don't want to take away from anybody's day. We don't have to, but we'll get through this stuff as quick and efficiently as we can. First item up is our office for returning board member Patrick Schaefer.
Actually, it was a resolution.
Whoa.
Mayor,
What do we need to do?
so he's still on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we can just skip it.
correct.
We'll just give it that. First item up. Consent items.
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
It's probably just me.
No, it's not picking up the sound in the room very well. So everybody's very, very soft. I'm not sure if it's picking up from the center or if it's picking up from Katarina's computer or whatever.
Should be the
Should
phone.
be-
We'll try and talk louder.
Thank you.
Sorry. Roll call. Sorry. I got that. It's only my second.
I get it. I get it. Here, Anna Barbieri. Vice Chair Greg Shelton,
Present.
Aaron DeKaiser,
Here.
Brett Hale,
Here.
Amy Graves, excused. Keith Zussman,
I'm here.
Lori Stringham,
I'm here.
Matt Holton,
Here. Good morning.
Mick Sudbury,
Here.
Patrick Schaefer,
Here.
Robert Pignon, excused. Gary Horn,
Here.
Tessa Spitzer, Tom DeSiren.
Thanks. All right, now on to the consent items. Minutes from June 24th.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. That's also for the adoption of resolution 4430, recognizing John Whitaker from the June 24th, June 2024 meeting.
Try to be efficient.
This time we're going to open up the public comment section, if any.
Unknown caller.
The none. One. Okay, on to the business items. 4.1. General manager.
Yes, Keith.
I have a request for the auditor on any services before we get into nurse. So, on 4.1, this is my request for you, the board. The board adopted a policy, informally adopted a policy years ago to limit the number of years or the term that we have auditing services. This is the independent audit that we do every year that we're required to by state statutes. Right now, we're in a contract with Squire. We have two other firms or three other firms that we have worked with. But since we have the, finance director who has left, and then we're looking at financial advisory services coming in, I'm just asking to extend that contract at least one more year for consistency, continuity for them, because they basically know it. If normally we'd go out for an RFP or an RFB, for this service. The price does range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, just depending on frankly, depending on the firm that responds.
So will you clarify, you're just asking, we're at the end of the 2 year, we're at the end of the 3 year. You just want to extend it 1 more year.
Correct. So they would audit 2024 as well,
And our policy is every 3 years,
every 3.
but this is just a one-time occurrence. You want to extend it 1 year, just so that you can get over the hump of all the change internally.
Yes, although, it would be a preference to extend that contract from 3 to 5, but I certainly understand that the board has wanted us to keep, turning that over to a different firm every 3 years, so they don't get too familiar with it, so
Yeah.
to speak. So I respect that.
I personally prefer to keep it at 3, and I understand the convenience at 5, but for 3 is so that they don't get real comfortable with you and you don't get real comfortable with them, kind of a thing. I think it's just built in that way so that it kind of adds a layer of protection. But that's my opinion.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So are
Any
we deciding if we're
Go ahead.
extending the year or or keeping it just to 3 and going out to RFP? Is that what the decision is right now?
The ask is to extend 1 year. Correct.
Understood. And those in the room said you were not comfortable with that. Is that what I heard?
I'm not comfortable with extending it to 5 years as a policy. I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with allowing it to extend 1 extra year just because of some of the changeover in our internal staffing. But how do you guys feel?
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm fine to extend a year, but to keep the policy at 3, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, this is Keith. I concur.
Patrick.
This is Brad, I
Schaefer
agree.
returns, I agree too.
I would like it documented though in our finances that there's extenuating circumstances as to why we're extending, and then I'm good with it as well.
If no more discussion, entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to extend this year limited independent auditing services 1 year due to internal extenuating circumstances.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Now the general.
All right, well, thank you for that approval. And moving into my report, I do want to just highlight that if you'll jump to the first slide, I'm just going to go right into it. For employee satisfaction, as you know, our goals are to achieve a high satisfaction rating from our employees. We try to engage with them as much as we can with education. I will say that getting the 10 new trucks this year has been a really big boost for our morale. They, as far as downtime, there's less of that with the newer trucks once they get up and running. And then also, one thing to note with these particular trucks, as you know, in the past, we've had the CNG tank on the top. This particular picture shows the CNG tank on the tailgate. So that hopefully will reduce some of the running into the tree branches and so forth. That was off of that's a new vendor called New Way, I should say, that we've been working with. And we're just trying to be a little more flexible when trying to secure those contracts for purchase trucks. And then those are a few photos from the Garbage Person Day celebration that was back in June. Just to show that our employees are engaged. We want to make sure we honor them and recognize their hard work and efforts. And then just a high update on our leadership development and team strengthening. I had mentioned before that the executive team was going to work with Dr. Tolson, Derek Tolson from the Utah State University ICE Systems. And we did have our workshop on June 27th. Good feedback from our team. looking forward to having 3 visits, each of us independently. So the idea is that we're gonna strengthen our own individual strengths as executive teams and get us focused on our priorities and then moving forward, working together. And then the management team met with our leadership consultant, Pam Guardio, on June 9th for the regroup to help to tackle up our upcoming challenges that we have as an organization and as a team. This is mainly to bring it all together and be on the same page, working together. And we, again, have good feedback from that session as well. And then there'll be 4 people that will work with her individually on strength building. The rest of us as managers and supervisors have worked individually with Pam in the past. Questions on that? We'll jump ahead. So customer satisfaction engagement, just wanted to tout the fact that we're out there. The belief is presence is everything. If we're out there and educating who we are and what we do, and then also providing the overall service information and the responsible recycling, hopefully we see some changes, and we have as far as contamination in those groups. Get into that in a little further. No questions on that? All right, the diversion rate, and that's where we're trying to divert the waste that we can away from the landfill to extend that life and then also capture those commodities for reuse. And you can see that we're 18.09% and our goal is 18% diversion. That's district-wide. Some areas are a little higher and some are a little lower. So we balanced out at that 18% so far in 2024. And then we have the subscription for green that does help. Besides the curbside recycling, we have subscription green, almost 12,000 subscribers there. As you may know, that is a separate fee for service, the monthly fee. The vision is that not have that monthly fee subsidize that. And also on the curbside glass, we contract that out to Momentum, and we just provide the administrative services and the billing on that. And we have the seven central sites for glass. And so far we have 276 tons for that, 133 tons for curbside.
How come July goes?
Yeah, it's hot, so we don't see a lot of green, right? It's like even I've noticed with our mowing our lawn or trimming our trees or anything else, it's just so dry right now. Yeah, that's mainly because of the drop in the green sun. Okay, scrolling on. And this is risk management, loss prevention, and Shane Lawrence, our wonderful safety and emergency preparedness coordinator, put together these next 2 slides, and I'd like him to come up and tell the great work that he's been doing with our team.
I don't know about that. Thank you for allowing me to give us a quick presentation. I know you guys get out of here, ladies. So it's just a quick here. As I said, we had an audit for workers' compensation from April of 23 to March of 24. And it just went through, looked at what do we spend, what do we not spend, how do we go through it. We had an estimated premium there, $130,000, but our actual came out to $107,000, and we received a refund for a little over $23,000. That's good. We've done pretty well with the workers' comp. We've done well over our E-mod, so we're kind of, starting to bring a little bit of money back in the house. Next slide, please, Renee. So what are we doing different in the past to kind of start doing this? One is with training, reviewing the past accidents, discussing things when someone's injured on the job, talking about PPE and prevention, how it can help out with that. We're looking to this year to really enforce a little bit more of wearing PPE for those who aren't doing it, or if they're injured while not wearing PPE, what's a ramification of that. Also educating our employees of the process of what happens when they're injured. A lot of people didn't know. What do I do when I get injured? Do I just go to my own personal physician? But no, so we've been educating, trying to keep them within our network where they're doing stuff regarding their contract, work with everything. Also, we're having them basically just, are you injured or are you hurt? What's the difference? For prime example, I had an individual come in the other day, had a little cut above his eye and didn't really know what to do. We just put a Band-Aid on it. It was better, other than when he ripped it off and tore up the stop ring, you know. That was on him though. But we took care of that. We reached out and talked to WorkMed, the physician there, and let them know that we do offer light duty restriction jobs here at our job. We're doing great. We have 2 in here right, actually 3. Here right now, we're on restricted duty, can't really get out in the truck, lifting anything heavy, so we're trying to find something to do here in the office, whether it's clerical work. Right now, with the temperatures, I'm trying to get a few people out with coolers, ice water, looking for drivers, just making sure they're okay, checking on their health, the heat and everything right now. So that's kind of benefit having those individuals. And also for some of the smaller claims, when we talk to WorkMed, we are kind of paying things in-house. By paying things in-house, we're not adding to the premium for the workers' comp and EMID insurance, like anything else. And the more you claim, the higher your premium's going to go up the following year. So we're trying to handle that. So with the 7 cases that we've handled in the past year, actually since January 1st this year, we're at $1,600. So that's going to be a significant savings paying if we turn it over to the trust or into travelers. And then again, we spoke with WorkMed and said, you know, the magic day off, if they go more than 3 days off work, then that's when workers' comp kicks in, and that's when all the premiums and everything go up higher. So talking to WorkMed, is this the kind of injury that we can have them back to work within 3 days, or is it 3 days away from work? And when we explain to them that we do offer, you know, basically they come into penny debt, we have a lot of data input they can do. They're pretty open to that, let them come back to work at that point. We save us that cost, they go back and payroll or there. I think there's some room to grow with this, and as you all know, my position too, so this is like Hazel and I are working on to just try to help the system out and also help employees. We want to be fair. We're not trying to get them back in here if they're really injured. We're trying to be fair to them. We don't want to do that. But we also want to help our bottom line. So, answer any questions for me?
Yeah, I got a question. So what happens if you have some of these people that's been hurt or that is hurt, that comes in and can't do what you guys need?
Well, that's a great question. Still with that scenario, no, it sounds horrible, but even if I can bring someone in, let's face it, a lot of our individuals are not computer literate. They're not really good at stuff. If we can come in and find something, one of the jobs I have is with our commodities and they go out and they basically just drive around and look at the recycling can to make sure that there's recycling in there. Unfortunately, we have one person in the truck that they're driving down the wrong side of the road. They're having to lift the can. It's just for me, from a safety standpoint, something. So I like to put that individual with that 2 people to help with that. Sometimes, I'll be honest, they're just sitting there. Sometimes on a computer, maybe punching in a few, you know, chicken typing at the keyboard to put information in. But having them here and doing that is considerably cheaper than right in the world's time and cost with that. We try to find stuff to fit everybody's what we can. There's some training, some FEMA courses that a lot of people still are required to take, maybe 1 in 700. So if we've done that, we bring them in and put them in front of the computer to get that done. We do the best we can with what we have coming in.
Yeah, I think even if you could only only train them, really increasing their value for us.
We try to do something. Again, you know, the 2 individuals right now, sitting them out because we're so short staffed right now that all our supervisors and everybody who normally be doing these big checks and everything, they're out in the field. So it kind of falls back. So it's good having some individuals who can kind of go out, they know the route, they know the location, they know the drivers personally. So we have ice water, popsicles, go out and just check on them on the really hot days to help them out. And after that, I want to make sure to give note that we've had several individuals off the staff and everyone who have one out. In the heat, we're really worried about the drivers. We've been pulling out. Everybody's trying to follow very well. So that's a good set of law.
Good job.
Other questions?
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it. And there's nothing like reading a policy manual to motivate people to get back to work.
I'm better.
We're ready to go.
All right, and then moving on to financial stewardship, which is part of our goal and what we strive to do. I think that you may know, that we are always looking for ways to improve and reduce costs. I should say ways to absorb increased costs, because we have experienced quite a bit of increased costs as we get into that financial report. I'll review that with you. So, talking about the price and proximity methods, I know that there are some newer board members with us, but each of the dumping facilities for garbage have varying fees, excuse me. So for the, taking waste to the landfill, and generally that comes from Kearns and Magna because of that proximity. That price is $29 per ton versus going to the Salt Lake Valley Transfer Station. So far in second quarter, well, year to date, we have over $86,000 saved for delivering that waste to the landfill directly. And then, for the second quarter, it's $47,000 saved. And again, the desire for a driver is to go to that transfer station because they're in and out in 2 or 3 minutes and it's cement versus the landfill traveling on dirt roads, which can be a little more challenging. And then we delivered 214 refurbished cans in the second quarter. And what that means is that we have cans that get returned, a second can, or from parks or so forth. So our container team cleans those up, and it saves us from purchasing new cans. So if somebody needs a can replacement, it may not necessarily take them a new one, a refurb. And then for that, if somebody just wants a replacement at their request, it's not broken, then we do charge them a fee for that. So we do get a revenue for that refurbished can as well, $40 versus the new can, $70. Reduce miles traveled. We always want to try to find ways because we are expensive per mile. Fully loaded per mile, about $12, and that includes labor. And so we ran a little test on what's called go backs. And I want to shout out to Justin Tuft, who's our garbage and special services manager. Also Renee, Jason Walk, who's our training coordinator. During some downtime, they pull up videos. So customers call in. What a go back is, customer calls in and they say, you missed my can, or you missed my street. So if we have the capability and staff have the ability to go on and look at the video from that truck that was supposed to be on that route, we can determine if we really missed them or not. Because we do have residents that will call, we've actually serviced them, but they may need an extra dump or what have you, so they say we missed them. So when we can verify whether we missed them or not, a confirmed go back is just that, we did miss them. A false go back is, or false request for a go back is basically we did not miss them or we serviced them. So we ran the 2-week test. And then Renee, I can't quite see that, and my printout is really small. Would you mind going over those stats?
Sure. Yeah, so essentially, when you looked, so during that 2-week test, we saw that 45% of those requests, we did service. And they were just asking for another tip, or they forgot to set their can out. So we were just then able to talk through with those customers. It was interesting when we called them back and said, hey, we reviewed the video. It's like you didn't have your can out in time. Just a reminder, next week to get it out the night before, or at least by 7 a.m. We didn't really have a whole lot of escalations. People understood. They're like, okay, I was just hoping you could come back. So, and then when we started explaining the cost, and we're trying to keep everyone's fees low. And so that's why we have to really be careful in going back, for these 1, 2 fees kind of thing. And so when we did the figures and said, okay, if we go ahead and start retraining some of our customers, just to where it's like, hey, if I forgot to set out my can, I'll just need to wait for next week. We can essentially save the organization almost $170,000 a year. So we did during that 2-week test. Pam had pointed out that 4th of July was in that 2-week test, which I think folks get confused anyway. Yeah. So we're what we'd like to do is do another 2-week test where there's no holiday in there, where it's the regular set out time. So then we can also compare the 2 different time frames and say, are we seeing about the same results or what's the difference there? But yeah, so more to come. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the tricky part is it's very labor intensive, to be able to pull up those videos and watch. And try to determine, you know, did the truck shake when they went by, or was that can out or not, or was it up at their house? So it does take some time. So the 2-week test is to be determined of when we're gonna be able to do that right now. We do have some equipment operator vacancies that we're gonna try to fill. So the folks that are able to pull up those videos for the limited time they have are out on trucks.
Can the people who are out on injury be looking at videos, or is that they can't because of the sensitivity in video?
No, I would think, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yes, they can, and so that takes a little bit of training, and so it depends though too, because we had initially had someone that was in term that was, you know, doing some training and stuff, then he got released to go back out on the truck, so it all depends. Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the first things that we were like, hey, did you do something, you know?
Yeah, thank you, great question. So to be determined, but we have already saved some costs by not going back to many of those customers. Yeah. Okay, any more questions on that? If you scroll to the next slide. If you have a question, I have an answer, so just let me know. Keep rolling. All right, let's get into our second quarter financial report, and I do want to thank Matt Ferguson, our controller, for helping to put together each of the allocations and bringing me up to speed on where we are with our cash. Then also David Icka went in and confirmed the maintenance costs and or why that's so high. So I appreciate that as well. So let's go ahead and kick off with the revenues. And where are we at with revenue so far? Total revenues increased by 180, almost 185K from second quarter 2023 to 24. And it's primarily due to the increase of waste collection fees of 80, almost 85K. Increase now the non-residential fees as well, because we did increase those to the county facilities and then Parks and Rec. And then it increased sorry, I'm having a hard time talking this morning, 40K for green waste, and that's increased subscribers. And then the interest income went up, and then then to note that we did have a decrease on the investments portion of that. That was partially because we needed to draw down from our investment accounts of $3.2 million to pay for trucks that were coming in. So it's a double-edged sword. We need the trucks, but when we pay for them, then we see that cash go down. So kind of prepping you for the slide that we look at cash. Don't want anybody to panic. The next slide goes over personnel expenses, and the total personnel expenses went up, and that was mainly due to the wage increases that were part of the 2024 budget that you all approved of almost 814K compared to 2023. And then, oh, excuse me, the total personnel went up. The wages went up 576. And then the health insurance, we also saw an increased expense for that, which we knew the premiums were going to go up. And the 401k, I wanted to note that because you'll see that big 238% increase compared to the second quarter of last year. What that is that we, as you may recall, we transferred our vendor services for the alternative to Social Security. So everything is going over to the URF instead of the ICMA Mission Square. So that's why there's a big jump there. We contributed, as a district, contributed 1% previously to the 401k with URF. And then the 6.2 went to Mission Square. So now it's a 7.2 for each employee going into, URF. Okay. Any questions on personnel? Okay, I'll keep rolling to the big one, and that is the operating expenses. And when we get into the graphs, you'll see the big jump in maintenance costs. But the total operating expenses increased almost 600K. And that's from compared to 2023 second quarter. And this is mainly due to the increased maintenance cost of $481K. And the timing of the can purchases, we planned on purchasing cans and have that budgeted amount, but it just depends on when we purchase and when that dollar amount shows up. So they did come into the second quarter, yes.
Keep new can at the stand rate.
Board members, Dukeman, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I just, can we go back to the previous slide on personnel expenses?
Sure.
When you, the 401K contributions, what, that's a new number? That's why I'm confused because I know we talked about this in previous meetings and transitioning from between the service or to URS. Weren't those funds already accounted for from? That's why I didn't quite understand the explanation. That's why I was asking again.
No, good question. So if you look at the Social Security, we still pay FICA for seasonal part-time staff.
Right.
So we had budgeted 459, almost 460K for that particular line item, including the Mission Square ICMA. So you'll see that there was a shift in contribution during the second quarter where we transferred funds over. And then we also started contributing to URS rather than the ICMA or Mission Square. So I think the main thing to look at is the percentages. Like for second quarter compared to, let me make sure I stop looking at the screen. Okay. So if you look at the second quarter for Social Security ICMA of last year, it was 187K contribution.
Right.
This year it's 88. So the 238 is also transferring the funds and then contributing the 238 percentage. And you can
Right,
see we had about 20.
Yeah, the supplemental 401K, that was kind of the,
Yeah,
so,
that's, go ahead.
no, that's right. Because in second quarter 2023, 29,000, and 2024, 166,000. So that's what I was trying. Wasn't that money already accounted for at some point? I mean, weren't these contributions already made previously?
Yes,
Basically changing
Yeah.
that line to that line.
correct. Yeah, just change from one line item to the other in that particular unit.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it on the you're seeing it down below.
Exactly. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
So for the
Yeah,
percent,
I guess if I balance out those two line items, it's a wash.
yes,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay. I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
think
so for
it's,
total. Oops. Thank
we're
you,
good.
Keith. The percentage total for personnel so far is almost 45%. We would normally be at 50% halfway through the year for any of our allocations there. So you'll jump down to the next. And we'll go over the operating expense. So I walked through a bit about the increased maintenance and then the can purchases. And then you'll see that so far for total operating expenses, we are at about 48% when we would be at 50. When we look at total revenue versus operating expense, we're 668K in the negative net gain. Now, one of the things to note there is that we just did our billing process starting in July. We started sending out the second quarter billing. So we should see a revenue increase coming in and cash coming in this month and into August. Okay, no questions on that? Going into fuel, and again, David Icke put together the charts for me and the graphs. And there's a breakout for CNG versus diesel, and we've been seeing those lines start to come together, over the years. The price per gallon is on the right side, and then the total costs are on the left. So you can see that, you know, we've steadily been increasing, and that is because of the price per gallon going up in both CNG and diesel. Any questions on that? And here's the big one with maintenance. You can see the big jump of 481K in maintenance compared to, last year and year to date. And that is, you know, I think we've talked about this quite a bit. We had an increase. We've seen a steady increase of $8.50 over the past 3 years of hourly rate for fleet services going up. And then also the high cost of our trucks as they age. And the one of the things to note.
Makes the funniness. It's this lady. Oh, I've seen this lady. This is amazing. It's like right when that person ripped it off. Yep. You see that?
Funny, on the stats, and you can get to 2024 on that. They're really giant, and I can see when you're saying we've had a steady increase in age, you can see that steadiness. But then are you, what is creating this big jump? Is it the age of the vehicles, or what is creating that huge jump?
Yeah, so part of it is the age, but not all of it. So there's the part that's on, as well as the hourly rate. Can you? Is that?
Is that, Lisa, you're coming through, you, please?
Can you get her microphone muted? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the other thing that's confusing to me is that it seems like we've been dealing with increased maintenance costs for a few years too, though. So it just seems like it's just a big jump.
Big, it is big, you're right. Some of that is when we have new trucks coming in, we have to decommission the old and we have to commission the new. So there is a piece of that will be in there as well. We do have warranties on the new trucks for at least a year. And I want to dive more into those costs and give you a better report, or excuse me, I should say a more detailed report in the August meeting.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that just seems like
It's a huge job.
yeah, it's like there has to be some explanation. I think you really understand that. And I understand that part of it could be because the 10 trucks all at once, but I'd like to really have detail to really understand it.
Absolutely. And then getting into the next one with recycling tons, as you can see, we've seen a decrease in tonnage, but we've also seen a decrease in the residual or the garbage, if you would. And then looking at the trips, and I think that's the telltale sign is that as there's lighter material in there that's harder to pack, then we start to see more trips going to and from the recycling center. So I just wanted to give you a little more stats to that information. Any questions on that? And then these are the refuge tonnages. You can see per facility where we're at. And as I mentioned, the landfill, it's $29 a ton, and so we do save some money going there. Trans Jordan has gone up steadily. They are now at $49 a ton. So where we used to take the southwest portion of Kearns over to Trans Jordan, we now go to the Salt Lake Valley landfill because we're saving $12 a ton. Yeah, it's very high.
We can't do it just because we're not a member, we can't get better rates, right?
Correct. Yeah, and it was a while back that the, Salt Lake County Sanitation looked into becoming a member, as a county or the district at that time, and it just didn't show that it was going to be cost effective. Would it now? I don't know, but I do know that eventually Trans Jordan was going to close, but the transfer station will be open, but even with a lesser fee at that transfer station, really it only makes sense to take White City's garbage to that facility as far as price and proximity.
Okay.
And then the, ever-present, we wish we had a crystal ball on the recycling cost per ton and the fees that we pay our vendors. But the good news is that it's come down, over 250,000, compared to last year. So we like that trend.
Yeah.
We hope that it holds steady. Normally, we would see an increase coming towards the end of the year, but this year, I'll have to keep a close eye on it because honestly, it just is everywhere, depending on commodities and what they can sell. As far as when I say what they can sell, I mean our local vendors. No questions on that?
Did the fire affect any of our vendors?
Thank you for asking that. As many of you may know, there was a fire that was out on 900 South, which is close to Rocky Mountain Recycling facility where they store cardboard and other material. It is not, it's not the same facility as we deliver our recycling. So in fact, Rocky Mountain was not affected by that fire. It was a pallet storage, I guess, right next door. And that it caught fire. So they had smoke damage, but nothing serious, thankfully. And then again, their facility where we deliver the waste or recycling affected at all. Okay, the next slide. This is our certification report and looking at the balances that are due. And then I wanted to follow up on any property you all approved properties to be released from tax sale as the property tax committee saw fit and homeowners were willing to work with them and us. There's only one property that is still owing $2,300 and they have required monthly payments of $200. So eventually we do receive all of our funds that are due to us through that lien authority that we have under state statute, thankfully. Okay. This is looking at the refunds, and on a quarterly basis, you've asked for this information. You can see the type of refunds that we distribute. And then thankfully, you all allowed for me to approve any overpayments and the amounts that residents might write. Unfortunately, people send us their house payments or other things, so we want to make sure we get that back to them right away.
The decimal point.
Yeah. $9,000. Yeah, can you imagine having to wait for this meeting for you all to approve that? So thank you. Compared to last year, though, it is a little lower at 23K versus 27. No questions on that. We'll roll along. Capital purchases, we may not receive all of the trucks this year. And the ones I mean are the 4 diesel that we ordered. We had back orders, right, that we are catching up on. So I'll watch that line item closely. I'm looking at the timing of, paying for these trucks, making sure that we have the cash in the bank and that hopefully we don't have to withdraw any more from our investment fund. Right now, there's a 3.5 million in there, earning some interest, not as high as last year, but again, because it's not as big of a dollar amount. So I'll keep you posted on that item and those purchases. Okay, going into our cash. And again, I don't want anyone to panic. This is definitely a different trend than what we've seen in the past. But that is again why I'm going to be requesting a fee increase going into 2025 and having those discussions with you. Again, we just sent out bills in July, so we will see either a leveling off or a slight uptick of cash. I think by year end, we projected right now, and Matt, you're sitting directly behind me, so it's hard for me to know you're there. But I think we're projecting around 6 to 7 million year end cash this year, but by end of next year, as you know, if we don't do something, we won't have much cash left. So any questions on that?
Remind me when was the last fee increase, but also I don't like the special service for the more than we have to look at.
Right, the last fee increase we had was going into 2023, and it was $2.50 per home per month at that time. You bet. So I believe, the next one is looking at, our cash projections going forward. And then just to clarify, this is as of 7/10/24, it's a work in progress because things change. And then I report to you as they do change. But in looking at 2022 and 2023, I wanted to make sure, I was having trouble lining up actual revenues and actual expenditures. So I went in and looked at the CAFR, or excuse me, the ACFR, and that's what that is at the top, the ACFR information to confirm. So these are the actuals for 22 and 23. And as you can see, the desired year-end cash is about 20%. So we were good in 2022 and 2023. Part of that is because we did not purchase any trucks. Then coming into this year, we're spending our cash and buying those trucks. So by year end, we're looking at, on this slide, it says 5.1. It really does depend on how many trucks come in and how, you know, what we pay for those. As you know, the diesels are a little cheaper than the CNG. So I'll keep you posted on that. Right now, at year end, we're looking at about 16 to 17%. And then going into next year, you can see that. And then going forward, there's no need to go really beyond 2026 because we don't have a fee increase. Any questions on that?
So what did you say the increase is going to, that you want to go?
Well, I have some scenarios for the next topic. If we're ready to, if there's no more questions on the financial report, I would appreciate an acceptance of those, of that report.
Anybody?
Make a motion to approve the 2024 second quarter financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, then. Let's carry on again.
All right. Oh, thank you so much. I was just determined. I've been doing. No, I'm good. So this is looking at just kind of a recap. I wanted to make sure that I recapped and reviewed because I know a couple board members weren't at the June meeting. So looking at the cost drivers, the highest cost drivers that we have in our operations, and then understanding that dumping fees, maintenance, fuel, recycling, wages, overtime, truck purchase price are the crux of our budget. This is over, even if you take out the truck purchases, you're looking at over 90% of our budget are those items right there because we're a service provider. So I wanted to make sure that I recapped on those. So total, and this is as of 12/31 looking forward in 2024 budget. These are budgeted projections, right? So in looking grand total, including truck purchases, we're at 4.9 million. Roughly that's a $5 per home per month increase. You know, and that's divided by 85,000 homes. You may know that we're close to 86,000 homes, but we also have 600 are in the town of Brighton. So they have a different fee structure because they do not receive curbside. Then going into the introduction for fee increase scenarios, the methodology here is basically looking at those 85,000 homes and then taking the dollar amount of the scenarios and timing that by those homes for 3 quarters. Because again, just a reminder, as far as cash and annual revenue with cash, we only receive 3 quarters every year, every calendar year. I just want to make sure everyone understands that because it is tricky. That 4th quarter goes into accounts receivable. It's received as revenue, but not cash. It's tricky. The other thing to note about any fee increase is that we can implement it January 1 as a district and have it be that calendar year, but we do not bill for that until April. Thank you. I wanted to say May. We actually don't start receiving that cash until May. So it is tricky, and want to make sure we balance that cash very effectively and manage it.
New wages and overtime, that's including all health costs, workers' comp, all that stuff is rolled into wages and overtime.
I believe that is only wages and overtime. And Matt, I'm not sure if you can confirm that. It's been a little while since we put that together, but I believe it's just wages.
Or which line?
Wages and overtime. Because if it includes benefits, that would be more like 11. Yeah. Yeah. All right,
I have a quick question.
sure.
So thanks to some recent law changes, some of our customers are going to join cities they're in. Have you guys started putting together numbers in anticipation of assuming that both of them are not going to incorporate as their own municipalities? Have we started to look at what the new numbers would look like as far as servicing and fees that we'd be collecting or not collecting any longer?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I'm not sure, did everybody hear Board, Vice Chair Shelton's question?
I did not, Pam.
Oh, that's Patrick.
So the question is, are we already looking at and factoring for the unincorporated areas that are currently our customers? And are we anticipating the reduction of fees collected as well as no longer needing to service them and what those numbers, how that would affect our numbers? More or less.
Yeah, so with any kind of annexation, our boundaries do not change.
Okay.
Unless the city that annexes them in comes to you and says, we want to withdraw those homes from the district at that time. Right now, the only one that I would recommend is the North Salt Lake County. North Salt Lake County, that's out of our service area basically, and we contract with Salt Lake City to provide the curbside service for them. And then we provide the area cleanup or scrap, for their residents and ours. So there's a total of about 50 out there. And then we bill our residents, they bill theirs. So those are the ones that I would come and recommend that we let go. And just let the city manage them.
They don't have county line,
They are right by the county line, yeah, it's right next to Davis.
because the law only affects anything that touches the county line, which is why the canyons are being affected, so they might not be part of the group that's required to annex and go to city, but we should. Are they?
Well, I don't know if they're required, but Salt Lake
They're
City
using it.
held a public hearing
Oh,
to
good.
annex, and so it is the properties that we.
That
service.
would make sense.
Yeah.
At least those for sure.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, yeah. So.
Yeah, because I could see a scenario where Sandy would walk the island.
Yeah.
So, at least in southeast island. So that's why it kind of came to my mind, but
It doesn't happen automatically.
yeah, that's good to
So
know.
it would be a process of negotiation between the district and the
Yeah.
relevant city about whether we want
So
to,
there's some time,
which is good.
yeah, there's some time in the process there, and at least we can then pivot when needed
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than.
It's not an automatic change.
Gotcha.
The only kind of districts that experience automatic membership are police and fire. If there's annexation.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
know.
you. Thank you for the question. I mean, as far as if they were to withdraw, and as far as the size of our district, we're talking maybe 2,000 homes at the most.
Yeah.
And then we're making up for that with growth in Magna and out to the southwest. Yeah, thank you. let's see.
We were just moving on to the
Yeah.
page, I think, right?
So the ethanol thing should, you're good. So the other thing to note on these scenarios is this is a projection based on expending 98% of our budget. I want to make sure I highlight that. That's 98% of our budget. And the reason why I would not want to reduce that percentage is because I'd rather have a cushion than a crisis. And I think, so far this year, I'll keep an eye on it and report back to you, but we very well could be close to that 98% of expenditures. So looking at this first scenario, I did have some feedback from Mayor Bush of Kern. And one of the things that she mentioned when Patrick was in the process of getting better, Patrick Schaefer, excuse me, board member, Mayor Bush did meet with myself and Renee and run through June's report to prep her for this report, even though Patrick's obviously doing better. But one of the things she mentioned was just rip the Band-Aid off rather than having, a few months of an increase. Just give me what it would be as far as a larger dollar amount to sustain us longer. So as previously before in June, I presented the $550 a month. I added one more scenario of the $650 a month. And then also, once we get into it, there's an incremental fee increase scenario that board member Orrin asked for. And I wanted to make sure I responded to that. One of the things that's not in this scenario is one of the things that board chair Barbieri asked is that what if we separated out curbside recycling and have it as its own fee? The question is, what do we do with, it's not just garbage that would be in that other food. It's scrap, it's Christmas tree, it's glass site. So it's like, how would we do that? And then to be honest with you, I would not want to be off. We start dividing up that fee, we still need to have a certain amount of revenue. So really, what would that other fee be? Or it's going to charge, Anyway, I think you understand. So for $650 a month, if we were to roll that out in 2025, that would bump us up to $26 per month. And you can see the cash projections going forward. And how long would that carry us until we would need another fee increase? That very well could take us to 2032. It just depends on the percentage of cash that you want to have as a board. And you can see that bottom line there.
What are the assumptions being made in the adjustments? Because, I think that we assumed that the rate increase from 2023 was going to carry us a lot longer than it did too, but our assumptions on budget didn't match reality. So what are the assumptions built into this budget? Are you 3%? What's the adjusted increases?
So thank you for that question. It is a 1% revenue increase every year and 3% operational expenditures every year. Those are the assumptions in there. That's been built in for years.
Yeah.
But we know that we experienced a lot higher expenditures in 23 and then coming into this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? So the last month I presented the $550 a month, and that would carry us right now based on actually jump back up to that other page. Yeah, down there. Scenario number 2 is the $550 a month, and we moved to $25 a month starting in January from the $1950. And the same assumptions. It's the 98% expenditures, and then the 1% revenue, 3% increase in the expenditures going forward. So how far would that carry us? Right now, with things as they are, it would be another fee increase going into 2029. Jumping forward to the incremental fee increases, these scenarios, and looking at $550 a month spread over 2 years, excuse me. So you can see the cash projections there. And then the 22-25 would start in the year of 2025. And then going into 2026, we'd raise it another $275 up to $25 a month. So it's just spreading that 550 over 2 years, and you can see that that doesn't carry us very far. So then the what if scenario of breaking it out over 3 years up to $1.75. And by the 3rd year, we would be up to $27.75. And that does carry us quite a ways. It just depends on the appetite, you know, what your thoughts are, what your, you know, feedback for me would have at this time. And again, these are snapshots at this time.
Can you do a scheduled rate increase, or do you have to go every year? Like if we did like take scenario number 4, do you have to go back before each municipality every year, or can you on the first year say here's going to be our scheduled rate increase?
So can I just,
Yeah.
so one thing to note is we're not required to go before each municipality for a decrease. You are the vote for your municipality. But there's that education, right? So we always want to make sure we're transparent of the why. So, but yeah, go ahead.
I need to double check that question. I've always been very hesitant on doing that. I know with tax increases, that's a big no-no.
Right.
But I have not been asked that in regards to the increases. I want to double check the law, whether we could proactively do a schedule to increase versus just a fee increase for this year. So let me look into that.
Would that be the budget adoption type thing? Is that what you mean? Or, I didn't know.
Basically, like when you do a fee increase public hearing, could they adopt a fee that is this fee for this year, this fee for next year?
You're just doing multiple years.
So when you adopt your budget, that's a separate thing, you'd adopt the budget, the fee that you approved for that year, but I'm not sure. I'll look into that and I'll check.
Good question.
Don't know how you all feel.
What interesting thing to know, again, so I'll look into that. This is my only district that operates primarily on like fees only, so I'm looking.
I don't, my personal thing, but when I claim on my taxes, I always try and let them I always try to be real close. Some people try and just claim high numbers and they take a lot out, so at the end of the year they get a lot back. I'd rather use my own money the whole year long rather than have to go. So that's kind of how I feel about this. It's like, yeah, this is great and it gets it over with at $6.50 or whatever.
The lump
But
sum.
that isn't a guarantee though, right? I mean, the 650 isn't a guarantee that's gonna carry you out that way.
Right. It's a
Projection.
Yeah,
projection. And so when I think about that as a person, I'm like, why would I do this so you can move my money for that period of time? You know what I mean? As a resident, as a board, it's easier for sure to say do that. But as a resident who's going to be impacted by it, and it doesn't ever seem like a lot, but when you look at the whole economy, everything is going up. And so I just always feel hesitant about taking more than is necessary at the time.
And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not for an increase because we as Magna are very poor out that way. I sit on the elected board for the water district and see all the delinquent notices coming, and I've talked with Pam, where's there's other ways we can cut? I mean, I'd like to honestly see our salary cost too, if you could get me a copy of all that. See where we're at in salary wise for our executives. Because it's getting crazy. I mean, and I'm tired of being taxed to death.
Yeah. Anyone have their hands raised?
Any other discussion?
Pat Schaefer from Kearns. I know Pam was talking with Mayor Bush. I'd like to talk to her first and see her point of view and see what she's thinking before I make any decision on this, just to let the rest of the board know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a good idea for us to take this home to our council and present it there. And just kind of get a consensus of what everybody's thinking about before really making a decision on that. But, you know, obviously I've got my own opinions, but I'm not the only one that matters, so. But if everybody's okay, I would suggest we, push this a month and make a decision next month if it doesn't create any problems for you, Pam.
Yeah, this is discussion and direction
Yeah.
mainly.
Yeah.
And that's all I was asking for now, because it does need to go out to each of your municipalities, and I'm happy to come to the meetings and talk about the why and present whatever information you feel would be helpful.
You'd probably do a better job than I would, so I would definitely prefer that.
Okay, I'm happy to do it and work with your council schedule. And I certainly respect the fact that it's not a popular topic and it may not be a very good time, but I want to make sure that we're still being able to, we can still pick up your waste and recycling. That's my objective, is to sustain this organization for the long haul, and I'll need your support to do that.
Yeah, that's actually one of my opinions, but, you know, I agree with board member one, you know, as far as not taking more than we need, but it is also a business that needs to run and it needs to operate in a healthy financial way. And so it's kind of that, where's that balance? So that's what's kind of going. You know, like I said, there are other people in our organization that would need to weigh in on it as well, so.
Absolutely.
All right, well, if there's no more comment or discussion, we'll go ahead and move on.
If you would jump to the next page, I wanted to do no, you're good. This was this is a document that you had asked for in the past. Just wanted to update it if we were to go to the $26 per home per month. And then to point out that we do need to increase the curbside greenways. So it would go from $11.50 up to 12, excuse me, wait a minute. $10.50, sorry, up to 12 on that as well. Make sure that it's not being subsidized by the monthly fee. Another note is that for special services going into 2025, we'll reevaluate that service as well. We have rates that'll go up for the county contract where we pick up for their facilities, as well as an escalation with Parks and Rec, escalation for the town of Alta, and then we'll revamp and look at the town of Brighton. The town of Brighton has received fee increases both in 2023 and coming into this year. So we may need to adjust theirs as well.
We also talked about picking up every other week on. Did you guys pencil anything more out on that? I can't remember the thing about that.
So if we were to go bi-weekly, it would roughly be $1.50 per home per month decrease. And I wouldn't want to project higher than that because again, we need to make sure we have the right revenues to cover expenses. The other thing is if you as a board want to entertain that, I would ask that we survey residents because you will have demographically some residents, well, some municipalities and the majority of the municipalities that be very willing to pay that additional fee to keep their weekly recycling, whether it's because it's convenient or whether because they really need it. I think that we'll see demographically.
Thank you for reminding.
Yeah. We can do it. We can have different fee structures for different, whatever direction you want to give.
Right.
Yeah, I think I am.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to. Moving on to item 4.5, year-to-date stat.
Yeah, so we wanted to just show everyone where we're at so far year to date, with the scrap numbers, and just wanted to highlight a couple of things. As you look at the chart, then you can see that Mill Creek and Holiday are showing a high percent of unaccommodated wait lists. right here, 77% and 49%. So essentially, 77% of Mill Creek's requests for, to be put on the wait list did not get accommodated. And then if you look at a couple other numbers on the other end of the spectrum, Murray and Mill Creek, they're showing a high list accommodation rate of 98% to 78%. So my initial thoughts were, okay, you know, is it based off of, you know, essentially the number of residents that work you can see here, Mill Creek and Holiday, they have a high number of wait list customers that went in and said, hey, we want on that wait list, we want on that wait list. So I dug in a little bit more, and essentially, when you look at it, the wait list request as a percent of the total amount of residents that we service in that area is between 4 and 5% for all 4 of those areas. So while it looks like they're definitely on the other ends of the spectrum, they're really, you know, like the requests are actually only about 4 or 5% of the total customers that we serve. So it's right in line. That's a perfect segue into co-chair request last month of the Google Analytics to look and see how many folks went in on our webpage and said, hey, who's looking at the webpage on the opening days? I'll go into that next. Well, let me ask any questions before I go on to the next slide.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Tessa with Copperton. I don't see any numbers for Copperton.
Well, that
Should be nothing for Copperton.
Yeah, we don't have those numbers just yet.
Okay.
Still out.
Yeah, it's still out there. So we'll have them, I think, the next month. Yeah, so
Okay. I was really curious to see how many people got on there on opening day, because that was the biggest concern I had here in Copperton. I had plenty of emails and text messages that I shared with Pam already, showing that we were completely full at 12:01 a.m. on our opening day. So I'll be interested to see those numbers. Thank you.
Who's that?
What does that mean, areas not designated in VA for? That thing we came back to.
So on the Google Analytics data right here, what Google Analytics was looking at, it was trying to look at the IP address from when a customer or someone goes on to that page. Some of these smaller cities are not called out. So for example, you know, I used like White City as an example. White City is not listed, but maybe that was inclusive to community, yeah, right? And so one of the items I wanted to call out is when I was putting these numbers together, I went ahead and looked at all users because there were so many different variables that influenced what city they were logging in from. So you might have somebody that's over in New York on vacation, visiting their daughter, you know, so that's gonna pull up a VPN or an IP address from New York. So that's why I looked at the all users and said, okay, on the opening day for that specific city, what was the number of all users that went to the scrap page? And what was the number of all users that went to the cancellation list page? And so what you'll see here over here in green, the percent reservation list versus users visit on opening days represents the percent of those that got on the reservation list compared to all users that visited. There, it's a lot of information. In red, we have the percent of those that got on the reservation list compared to all users that visited the scrap specific page on the opening day. So essentially here in Mill Creek, close to 25% of those that visited the scrap page on their opening days got a reservation, confirmed reservation. And then 26% that visited the wait list page actually were accommodated. So if you go through here and look at all the different areas, it's a span between, you know, 11% up to 25%. Any questions? I know it's a lot of data. And we included in the appendix, city-specific data and information if you were curious and you wanted to go down through there and see. As you can see here, this shows each city. So folks that were in their city, were in their home, it's gonna allocate those folks, that were in Heron, for example, and then just to show, here's all the different cities that are listed as, they came in and visited the scrap page or the waitlist page, from Cali, from Buena Vista, from Mesa, San Diego, all over the place. So that's why I used all users and was able to, and Greg, that was to your, point on the before.
Yeah.
Everybody.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, you can't control where they're logging in from, so that's,
Yeah.
aside from being able to see it, but hey, that's cool.
Yes.
It's an irrelevant point for the staff side of things, because ultimately we care about what data they try to hit the website and how does that compare to steps we were previously looking at. And I think this does show us that it's pretty close, but there are some outliers out there that are giving up when they see all reservations are full and they just log out.
Right.
So, but it's not, 60% that are just like leaving and saying, well, I've had it now.
Right.
So that's good.
Well, if you look at the repeat reservation data page, it looks like if we implement a policy that says if you got it this year, you would have to be on the wait list for the next year or next year. It looks like we're gonna capture most people every other year.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I'd like to point out about this slide here too, is that you can see the increase of repeat reservations. So it's almost like, because remember, was it 2022 and 2023 were kind of our first reservation on the new website, and the folks are getting, they're understanding how it works now, and so, you got a higher percentage.
Yeah. I think that might help solve some of the angst as far as I never get it, as long as you do every other year. Yeah, and I think that we're gonna be able to capture them.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, cool. My dumpster is very full.
And then, Chair, Marvin, we had kind of asked last, meeting whether, like, how our wait list, how it's advertised, if someone goes in and says, I can't get on the reservation list. I went back and confirmed that once they go on there and if they click on the date and it's already full, literally there's a pop-up, and I included the screen print there. It says, hey, we've already reached our maximum capacity for that day. Go here, put your name on the list, essentially. And then we also have a message right there smack in the middle of the scrap reservation page. Hey, if for some reason you can't get on, go here. So I think I'm pretty comfortable that we're advertising that wait list. Pretty good.
Question? And I haven't.
Well, I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question. And I wasn't on here, because, how come we went to this and not put the dumpsters out like we used to in different areas?
Yeah.
Because I was never, I don't know how this program started.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So in June, I did a recap of this is where we were. I showed pictures of what it looked like with the garbage piled up in the street and all the bulky items, couches, washers and dryers outside of the containers. And we had to have the manual labor of up to 18 CDL drivers and then also 6 ground crew to clean up the mess. And there were times that we would have to rent a skidster to handle that waste. So we don't have the people to be able to manage that. And so in 2020, knowing that we were short-staffed, both in 2019, we were down 10, on an average, 10 full-time drivers throughout the year. And then on the area cleanup, we were down 10. So it was all hands on deck. It was chaos. And then knowing that going into 2020, we had only been able to recruit 10 drivers. I asked the board for a change because of the staffing shortages and we were heading into a pandemic. And so I actually asked for 10, to be honest. And the thought was, it's so popular So high demand, come up with a different scenario. So I brought forward something that we had talked about as a staff to our board a couple of years previously because of the staffing shortages. And we were given permission to roll this out. And the reservation system was basically developed and became more sophisticated over the years. We're in our 5th year now of running the SCRAP program. Does that help? Okay.
Just because it was too expensive, first of all, we couldn't manage.
Yeah, we couldn't manage it.
There was enough drivers.
That was the only reason. If we had enough staff, we would not have put you all through this, or ourselves or the residents.
I know that, my city's interested in putting together some kind of supplemental, program for us. So I don't know what we need to do to make that happen, or look at some kind of budget, and if you guys have the capacity to do something that has some sort of supplemental program.
We'd love to. I know that board member Sudbury had asked me to submit some thoughts and ideas. We do have a list of other options for cities and towns to look at, where we would have containers at a site and we would basically leave them there and come and pick them up. And the challenge is that we would be able to do it during the week, because right now we're down 6 drivers. And that's a challenge. So we, on Saturday.
Anyway, right? Well, they're all home in theory.
As long as we can get enough volunteers to come in and earn all overtime, we can, do that and look at cost.
Okay. Yeah, because we did officially, say, let's, have a conversation with her board and look at doing something, so noted.
Okay.
Please note that, but,
Okay.
we definitely want to move forward on working something out and adding to that, because, I think the numbers are great with scrap, and it does show that we could meet the needs of the community with scrap, but there's always those outliers that I think that the city should bear something extra. So yeah, the biggest thing is happening on your guys' side with labor and time and whatnot, and what time of year is gonna work. Very scrap. Probably not.
Sometimes we can, as long as it's on Saturday.
Yeah. Great. Nobody has anything else? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on. Thanks, everybody. I don't think we have a closed session.
Nope. We
So,
did.
any other board business? Guess that was me.
Thank you.
But if nobody has anything else, we have these requested items. I don't know who wants to go over those.
I can if you'd like. Okay, so always the standing item is my general manager's report to make sure I have it on and put items I need you to be informed of. And then looking at the budget priorities going into 2025 and proposed fee increases, start early. As you know, the proposed budget from me comes in September, but in August, I want to make sure that I'm getting you as much information as I possibly can. What are benefits going to look like? What are, wages and any recommendations with that? And then looking at the municipal councils and visits with possible dates. I'd like to review that and confirm going forward especially once the August meeting happens and you are, talk to your council and have more time. And if you want me to come again, I will do that. And then the year-end 2023 fraud risk assessment, we are required to do that by law every year, to review that with you as the board, and you accept it, and we send it on up to the auditor. And then one of the things, looking at HR policies, we do want to revisit with you the zero tolerance policy related to drug testing and alcohol. So Hazel, David, myself, and Shane will get together and come back with some thoughts and recommendations.
You want a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, please. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I hope I have more information on the